Hi everyone, welcome to Katie Mack Comments, a channel where I, Katie Mack, comment. But in all seriousness, here on my channel, we discuss social justice issues, pop culture, and feminism. So if any of that interests you, be sure to click the subscribe button down below. Today, we're going to be talking about how influencers are still throwing parties in the midst of this pandemic. So let's just get right into it. Influencers such as Bryce Hall, Nikita Dragon, Tana Mongeau, James Charles, Charli D'Amelio, the Nelk Boys, Jake Paul, and many others have been throwing and attending large house parties within the last few months in LA, disregarding the stay-at-home orders put in place by local government officials and guidance from the CDC in protecting yourself and others. It's gotten so bad that the mayor of LA had to shut off the power and water to Bryce Hall's home after multiple warnings about his parties. Now, Bryce Hall and his friend Blake Gray have been charged with misdemeanors for defying stay-at-home orders and could face up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $2,000. During the press conference when this was announced, the Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Foyer stated that, "If you have a combined 19 million followers on TikTok in the middle of a public health crisis, you should be modeling great behavior rather than brazenly violating the law." More recently, a group of YouTubers called the Nelk Boys, who have been partying their way through LA, have now decided that they're going to travel nationwide to different colleges to encourage pandemic parties. They started their pandemic party tour at Illinois State University, after which the mayor and the president of the university are considering suspension and fines of up to $750 for each student in attendance. The Nelk Boys are now in New Jersey, hosting meet and greets with large groups of unmasked people and no regulations in place. YouTube put out a statement that says, "We have temporarily suspended monetization on the Nelk Boys channel for violating our creator responsibility policy. If we see that a creator's off-platform behavior harms our users, community, employees, or ecosystem, we take action to protect the community. In this case, these creators were encouraging very large groups of people to actively disregard social distancing guidelines from local health authorities that were put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19, creating a widespread public health risk." There was also another LA-based birthday dinner followed by a party for the Hype House photographer Bryant. In attendance was Kylie Jenner, James Charles, the D'Amelio sisters, various Hype House members, and more, totaling up to about 50 people at the party, but YouTube doesn't seem to want to reprimand these influencers. While the partying alone is a problem, the issue gets much bigger when these influencers are broadcasting these parties to millions upon millions of followers. While they might not want to accept that their actions have consequences beyond themselves, these influencers have incredibly large platforms, and most of their followers are young and impressionable kids. I've seen some of these young fans excusing their favorite influencers' behaviors by saying it's their life and their decision, but the thing is, it's not just their lives that are on the line. Attending a party with large groups of unmasked people during a global pandemic has effects that reach much further than the attendees. What happens when one of those partygoers has to run to the grocery store and gets slightly too close to someone who's high risk? What happens when these influencers' assistants and managers go home to their families? What about when an older couple decides to go take a walk in the park because they've actually been quarantining and haven't been outside in days, but they just happen to pass by some of these unmasked influencers? This is how viruses spread, and this is how people get killed, especially when proper precautions are not being taken. As of the day I'm filming, September 15th, there have been over 194,000 deaths in the US alone, with 6.55 million cases nationwide. The concerns about these parties are not just because we're worried about the influencers themselves, but also because of how easily these parties could spread the virus to unsuspecting innocent people. And that's not even considering the fact that these influencers are posting about these large, unmasked gatherings to their huge audiences on social media. Every time one of these influencers posts about a party they went to or friends they hung out with without wearing masks, they're advertising to millions upon millions of kids that wearing a mask and social distancing isn't important. Every time these kids and young adults see their favorite TikToker disregarding social distancing rules, It brings them one step closer to disregarding those rules themselves. They can look on their Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and say, well, so-and-so is going out to parties and hanging out with their friends, so why can't I? Influencers attending pandemic parties has a detrimental effect on not only them, but also on their loved ones, their fans, and even strangers that they have never and probably will never meet. In one of her videos discussing the topic of influencers attending parties, Smokey Glow says, they want the influence until they actually have to be influences. Influencers don't want to actually be held accountable for the consequences of their actions. They just want to continue acting in complete and utter selfishness without any negative effects on their platforms. Some influencers have even issued apologies for going to parties and posting about them, but every single influencer that I've seen that's made an apology has since been seen at other pandemic parties, and some are still even posting about them. In a New York Times article entitled Why Influencers Won't Stop Partying Anytime Soon, that was written all the way back in early August, it stated that even when the cameras aren't rolling, influencers say the parties are a necessary outlet in a time of extreme social isolation. And listen, I get it. I really do. Quarantining for most of this year has been extremely damaging to my mental health, and I'll admit it, I'm jealous of the people who are seeing their friends right now. However, I've chosen to put public health above my own social needs because I want to be doing the right thing. Nothing about quarantine has been easy or fun, but when scientists tell us that there's something that we as individuals can do to help stop the spread of this virus, especially in a time that feels so hopeless and out of our control, we should do whatever we possibly can to do that thing. As someone who has allowed my mental health to spiral out of control in the name of stopping the spread, it is absolutely infuriating to log into social media and see these influencers with giant platforms disregarding all of these rules. The worst part of it all is that it would be so easy for these influencers to stay home right now. Their jobs are already completely online, they already have huge followings, and most of them even live with other creators, so they can even still do collabs. They could still be making just as much content and are probably even making more money now than they were when the pandemic started because everyone is still stuck at home on their phones. These influencers live in giant mansions surrounded by all of their closest friends, yet they have the audacity to claim that this is necessary for their mental health. Look, I know this is an incredibly hard time for everyone. We as a country are going through so much collective trauma right now, and no one really knows how to handle it. But for these influencers to come out and say that they absolutely have to be partying right now when they all live with their friends is just such a slap in the face to every single one of us who has actually been quarantining and hasn't been able to see their friends in months and months. I would love to see my friends right now more than anything in the world, but we also all realize that there are more important things to be worried about right now. It is just so unbelievably frustrating to watch all these people online give zero fucks about public health while I'm here actually socially isolated and miserable because I'm genuinely trying to stop the spread. What I think a lot of Americans don't understand is that if we really all came together, we could stop this virus. If we just all agreed as a nation to actually quarantine for a few weeks, it could be gone. We could eradicate the virus's presence in America if we actually stayed home and wore masks. And I know a lot of young people are convinced that they're invincible and that the virus won't affect them, but I hate to break it to you, it will. If you get sick, even if you're young, you can still die. And even if you don't die, your body will forever have to deal with the long-term effects of having the virus. I think that young people think that this virus is just like a common cold that you can just get over. But this is a deadly virus that has already taken almost 1 million lives worldwide. This is not something to be taken lightly and not something that a post on your Instagram story can fix. This is a real-life public health crisis that has had global impact. I just wish that the influencers that were attending these parties and posting about them realized the severity of their actions. If all of these influencers decided to band together and make social distancing seem cool, that could have a huge positive impact on American public health. They could post selfies wearing masks, film socially distanced collabs like Nikki Tutorials and Selena Gomez, and encourage their young audiences to join them in taking precautions to keep everyone safe. These influencers have the power to make a huge difference, but they're choosing the selfish route. They think that the only way they can get views is by being controversial and breaking the law, but there are plenty of influencers who have a huge following and are still able to set a good example for their fans. I would really love to see a shift in the broader influencer culture that values empathy for others and influencing kids to do what's right. It's really fucked up, but I truly don't think that these influencers will change their behaviors unless they have a personal experience with the virus, whether it be themselves who gets it or a loved one. Obviously, I wouldn't wish this virus on anyone, and I truly hope none of them get it, but it really does seem that at this point, the only thing that will get through to these influencers is an outbreak in their community. It just truly feels like these influencers don't have empathy for situations that they haven't personally experienced, and they will continue to ignore the severity of this pandemic because they feel like they're invincible. Just because the virus might not take your life, and might not even give you any symptoms, doesn't mean that you can't be an asymptomatic carrier who could possibly be spreading this virus to other people who are less equipped to handle it and might actually die. I want these influencers to realize that this isn't just YouTube drama that they can just ignore. This is real life shit. This is America's public health at risk. It's already immoral to not care enough about other people to wear masks and stay home, but sharing these irresponsible actions with the world is straight up dangerous to the public's health as we know it. The CDC informs us that the virus is mainly spread through person-to-person contact, so they recommend staying at least 6 feet away from people who are outside of your household, wearing a mask covering both your mouth and nose in public, washing your hands often and for at least 20 seconds, and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces in your house. It's also more important than ever to get a flu shot this fall so that healthcare resources can be saved to care for COVID patients. I just want to give a huge shout out to all of you who have actually been quarantining this whole time and taking this virus seriously. Thank you for genuinely caring about the welfare of our country and trying your best to stop the spread. Thank you for putting the nation's needs in front of your own social desires and for actually giving a shit about other people. Thank you for making decisions based on your morals and not out of your own selfishness. Even the current political leaders of America are convinced that this public health crisis isn't a big deal. So I encourage you to register to vote using the link down below and ensure that your vote is going to someone who actually believes in science and wants us to end this public health crisis. Please, I beg of you, just stay home, hang out with your friends virtually, and wear a mask that covers both your mouth and nose if you absolutely have to go somewhere. That's it for this video, but before I go, I want to remind you all that there's no such thing as a perfect feminist. We all come from different backgrounds and various cultures, and we're all still learning, but the important part is that you're here and you're trying. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've made it this far, comment "wear a f***ing mask" down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!